Hi, my name is Jay Sugarman, and I want to welcome you to Innovation Showcase. The main purpose of this ongoing series is to inform viewers about exciting innovations and creative individuals across the fields of business, science, technology, education, and the arts. Today, via Zoom, we're extremely fortunate to have as our guest Lou Jones. Lou is an internationally acclaimed photographer whose powerful and ongoing Pan-Africa project is redefining how the world sees Africa. Over the past decade, Lou has traveled extensively across the continent, documenting the modern realities, innovations, and creative spirit of nations too often portrayed through outdated or one-dimensional lenses. Through his efforts, we see a vibrant contemporary Africa, urban skylines, scientists, artists, entrepreneurs, and everyday citizens shaping the future of their communities. His work celebrates progress, resilience, and humanity in all its diversity. Lou's recently completed second book in the series, Pan-Africa Project Volume 2, builds on the first volume's success, expanding his vision across new countries and themes. It continues his mission to replace stereotypes with truth and beauty, one photograph at a time. Let's start by meeting Lou and then hearing all about the Pan-Africa Project. Welcome, Lou. So delighted you're able to be here again.
I appreciate it. You have no idea how much it means to be able to share this, especially in a medium that we're not as privy to as this is. Thank you.
And congratulations from the start for volume two. I know many more to come,
Many
even.
more.
Eager to hear about what's happened since we last chatted and have you inform viewers. For those who might not be as familiar with the project yet, could you just briefly share what initially inspired you to launch the Pan Africa project?
Well, I'm a commercial photographer and have had a studio in Boston for many years. But in tandem with the commercial work, I have constantly pursued long-term projects like pregnancy. I did a couple of books on the death penalty, on men and women on death rows in the United States. I've done 13 Olympic Games, but and
Wow.
many other things. But in my travels, I realized, and I actually read a story in, I think it was the New York Times, saying that the African Union was going to censor Western media and Western media outlets to access to news stories in Africa because they did such a horrible, horrible
Hmm.
job. Very, very negative, constantly very negative job. And I thought this was a horrible, what horrible, I had grown up in America and censorship was a four-letter word, that kind of thing. And so I said, I had to do something about that. And it took me years and years and years to come up with this iteration. I
Mhm.
rejected many ideas, but so the idea was to to t- to try to dispel a lot of the myths and misinformation and misconceptions about current contemporary Africa.
How do you go about selecting which countries and communities to visit, and what criteria guide those choices?
Well, there are many, many countries in Africa, and I again rejected a number of methods to try to figure out how to go about it. The algorithm is relatively complicated. It probably has as much to do with seasons as
Hmm.
anything else. So the African continent is split in half and sort of has a northern and a southern south of the equator, etc. And so we have to be very conscious of when we go so that
Hmm.
we're photographically trying to put the best face on any country. They don't have often the same kind of winters that we might consider here in, say, New England, but they do have a growing season, a dry season, and a rainy season by and large. And that's being a little generalized, but uh, uh, and when they say rainy season, they mean rain. And so it really does cause it to be very complicated to try to photograph during the rainy season. So we try to avoid usually the rainy season, which is probably not a good idea because that's is an aspect. We only photograph one
Mm,
country during rainy season. Um, but uh, we also chase things that might be happening, sort of national
mm.
festivals. We chased a film festival in uh, Burkina Faso. Took We had to wait an entire 2 years because it's only every 2 years.
Wow.
So we had to
Oh.
wait to come around again once for that one. We do follow some other kinds of really, politics, elections, but we also, and the most probably you can maybe see a little bit from the map, we try to not concentrate on any one area. We don't,
Mm,
some people become very, very, very experts in West Africa or East Africa or South Africa, that kind of thing. We've tried to dot it around, and we haven't been as successful with that, but you can see from the map how we've moved around quite a bit, and just so that we don't get sort of, even though Africa is so unique, each country is so unique,
mm,
even when they're side by side, the cultural situation can be night and day. But we didn't want to get that sort of Northern Africa, which tends to be Muslim, Islamic. Southern Africa tends to be Christian, that kind of thing.
mm.
We didn't want to get caught up in that kind of thing. And also, the last but not least, which I just had to write to a major company in Africa, just a proposal for their help. We try to give equal footing to the larger, well-known countries, the ones that are visited by tourists, Western tourists, and are in the news all the time. We try to give the little smaller countries that people may
Mm,
not even know exist or where they are and things like that. We try to give them the same equal footing.
mhm, mhm.
So
You know,
doing that really dots us around the map, the continent.
no, this map does a wonderful job giving a sense of the range and diversity of you've covered so far into the project. And speaking of the map, before we move on, enjoy some of your superb photography. Just have to say that this comes from your website, and when viewers and others go there and click on the images of the countries, you are just revealed with this overwhelming sense of each country, the information that you've and your colleagues have provided, together with the incredible visuals through your work, is just an unbelievable resource. Not, enough can't be said of the power of this map when you go online and do some exploring.
Thank you. The since we last visited with you, the Massachusetts Department of Education has adopted a large body of our photographs. They
Ah,
have rewritten, redesigned the curriculum for the school system in Massachusetts and are using and got rid of all those horrible, horrible, outdated photographs that were really giving a very, very negative view. Well, it wasn't always negative, but outdated, let's put it, view and so they're using that. So, and we try to do the entire range. We go industry, we go agriculture, we go into people's homes, we do
Mhm.
the high tech, we go into the traditional villages, the indigenous
Mhm.
populations. We do the entire thing. We do schools, et cetera, et cetera.
Moving on, volume two, how does it build on volume one? What can viewers and others look forward to when they have a copy?
Well, volume one was an ambitious undertaking and was building, and by design, people started to give me trouble, beg me to do a book. And I said, if I wait till I finish the entire project, I'll be 145 years old. And so I thought, came up with the creative idea to do it in volume form. But that meant that we were doing that we did 4 countries in the first volume, and we're well ahead. We're working on actually we're working on volume 4 already. That
Wow.
we've almost finished volume 3, and we're starting work on volume 4. So the first volume was an introduction and written in a way that we thought would be for adults, but also maybe the introduction to Africa for maybe that middle school,
Mhm.
high school, beginning of college idea. And now volume 2 is a little bit more sophisticated. We not only deal with the countries, but between each chapter, we have a major issue. So in the first volume, volume 1, we deal with, let's see, I'm slowing you down here. Sorry.
Not at all.
We're dealing with healthcare, water, which is a major issue around the continent.
Mm.
Women, people often denigrate the politics of women in Africa, whereas, say, a couple of the countries now are the leading in the world for the number of women in government and in political positions of power and what people do now. But the second volume, not to go, is deals with the issues are a lot more sophisticated. So
Mhm.
sports, music, things like that, and
Nice.
sort of in a more global sense, not only about where it comes from in history, but currently, and then how these things influence. Africa probably has the most resources of any continent in the world, and eventually it's already started well into it. Started, but eventually it will probably produce the largest um, resource value to the world.
Mm. Wow. Wow. Well, in time remaining, want to take advantage of your exquisite photography and start a little tour of where you've been these last few years. And the first place we have here is Morocco. Can you share what you've captured here?
Well, one of the things that people say, if somebody said, "You're so brave going over to Africa, you can get sick and you can, and you." I said, "What do you mean?" I said, the this is Morocco. This is a major hospital in Morocco. They're doing a heart operation here. The wonderful thing is they allowed me, and I look just like them. I'm covered head to toe with,
Mm.
and photographing, but I'm trying to show that, the standards of now, not to be
Wonderful.
disingenuous, Healthcare is a problem in Africa, and not all of this filters down to the everyday person and maybe in a local tribal village or something. But we need to say that, and they deal with Africa historically well with their holistic medications and things like that when they get out into the remote areas. But the most important part of this photograph, even though it's not that obvious, is the women, the nurses in the background wearing the surgical mask, and they're both Islamic,
Mm,
and that is a religious as well as a healthcare situation. And I
mm.
thought that was a wonderfully unique way of dealing with that problem.
Most definitely, most definitely. Just a quick word on what inspired this shot.
Well, again, we're dealing with contemporary Africa, and I want to talk about communication. I want to talk about media, television, radio, and how important that is to, just like in our country, but newspapers are still vibrant
Mm,
in Africa. We are considering that they're sort of fading or becoming
mhm,
less important, but in point of fact, uh, the newsprint is affordable. It's a way of local environments to say the news and also to advertise, and it's accessible, and it really is a very, and this is Namibia, and they allowed it was a great deal of trouble getting into this at midnight. They're printing at midnight and
wow.
3 o'clock in the morning, just like I guess in the United States. But
Hmm.
uh, they allowed us to come in, and we set up lights and did so. This is a fellow. He's proofreading the newspaper. The newspaper's behind him. He pulls one out every few and looks to see if the registration of the color photographs, the if the printing is right, if there's any smudges, if there's and so that's what he's doing there. So he's
Terrific.
yeah.
And moving on to this site, what are we enjoying here?
Um, we're seeing here in Mozambique a black-owned airline.
Mm,
So this airline literally covers the entire country, and it's a black-owned and black-run airline. And so they're doing things just like in the United States, just as sophisticated. But in point of fact, it's not one of the major uh, airlines. It's a local airline, and they do a very so. I like to show these sort of high tech things, and the industries that we think of being as modernization being done well by. I got to meet the owner, and that was how I got into this this this
mhm.
this photograph.
And in contrast, now we're in Kenya in a banana farm.
That's right. And uh, the most imp and again, I don't like generalizations because there are 54 countries, but the most important consistent factor about in Africa is agriculture. They have a lot of land. A lot of it is plantable, so people, and of course, food and exports also. We're going to Cote d'Ivoire next week, and Cote d'Ivoire produces probably one of the largest uh, commodities of cocoa, which produces the chocolate that we eat.
Mhm.
And so Africa, as I said, as it is growing, has this enormous resources and so this is a woman owned cooperative farm that is producing bananas, and I think she's just the example for the area. So we were very fortunate being able to get onto her property, and to be able to photograph. Again, you see how we're doing growing season is very important to our
Mhm.
photography.
Mhm, mhm. In addition to the content that you just explained, I just have to mention just the exquisite photography
Mm.
here. I mean, this shot is unbelievable just to appreciate it from that aspect. I mean, there's just so much we can talk about. I want to give you as much of a sense of what you've accomplished so far. We're still in Kenya, but have moved on.
This is Kenya. And the interesting thing is I've seen this is Mount Kilimanjaro, which is the tallest, it's the tallest mountain in Africa. And it's one of the, I think, what do they call it? The Big Seven or something like that
Yep,
about the,
yep.
yes. And you see it's snow-capped. It's very warm where we are, but the top of it, and it's in Tanzania, even though we're standing in Kenya,
Ah,
looking into Tanzania. And this is a Maasai warrior who is their pastoralist, uh, and they have lots of they sort of their fortune, their estate is about animals by and large, and they move
mm,
around a lot. And so this is so getting being so fortunate and finding uh, this cattleman and Mount Kilimanjaro in the background.
wonderful, wonderful. And now just a totally different setting. What are we enjoying here, Lou?
Well, again, we chased the smaller country. This is a country called Burkina Faso. People may know it's in West Africa, um, completely landlocked, and the economy is marginal. It's struggling. But one of the things that we found, and one of the things we're very interested in the arts. And so we chased and chased and chased and found a couple of dance companies. We got into some museums and things like that, but we found dance. And so dance is so much more visual in terms of the arts. And the dance in Africa is so much an important phenomenon in the
Mm,
culture. So the sort of indigenous populations, and it's so unique country by country. But in contemporary Africa, which this is, they've translated a lot of those traditions into modern dance, which is what we are seeing here. And this wonderful choreographer, which you see on the right side, uh, brought this company to the Atlanta Olympics. She was invited to entertain during the Atlanta Olympics. She's gotten so well known. But you can see the dance, and this is lit. I have lights in the room
mm.
in order to light it, and I will dare anybody to find my reflection in the mirror.
And time for just a couple more with commentary. Here
Absolutely.
we see, I believe it's going to be a circus in Zambia.
That's right. Uh, these kids have learned, I mean, they're amazing. And they take this sort of moving circus around and they go to festivals and they do, it's almost street circus. And
Mm.
they allowed us to come in for the rehearsal. And we like to be able to get behind the scenes. So this is during one of the rehearsals, and not only do they do the performances, which is how they make their living, but they also train other people, younger people, to do some of the acts also.
These next two, which we'll just have enough time to fit in, are going
Yep,
to be in Mozambique, and we're going to see quite a contrast here, a fish processing plant.
that's right. This is the Indian Ocean. They're bringing these fish out of the Indian Ocean. When I always wanted to see and so they allowed us, and I look again. They made us dress up just like they do,
Hmm.
fish, and it's a very complicated product, in many countries in Africa, because a lot of Africans don't, in fact, eat fish well. So
Mm.
a lot of it is a major. They're trying to make sure that people use fish as a wonderful source of protein, but it's a culturally complicated to get people to, and so a lot of it is exported.
And still in Mozambique, but quite a different setting.
Yes, that's right. We have of course the sort of first thing that anybody when somebody says, "Oh, I've been to Africa," you know that they've gone on a safari. So we of course have to include the fact that Africa is probably the most important continent in the world. That's arguably, but in terms of the numbers and the varieties of major animals that we find, and of course, you can go on the safaris, and this is on a safari, and we photographed the giraffes a little bit differently than most people do. Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. And in the time remaining, one more shot, and it goes to what you were saying earlier, that in addition to going to airports and uh, seeing giraffes, you go inside people's homes.
Right. And this is the absolute opposite. People say, you're doing everything positive. I said, I'm not. This is in Kibera, which is a ghetto. It's probably the biggest ghetto in all of Africa, as a matter of
Mm.
fact. There's hundreds of thousands of people who live there. So they're living without electricity, without running water, so you see a TV here and electric lights, and I say without electricity. So all of this is stolen. So they're running cables from the power lines in
Ah.
order to and they're running water through hoses. I mean, you see the leaking hoses running all down the street,
Mm.
but people living together and living, and so they have TV, they have cell phones. So they're adapting to modern the modern world in unique ways and things like that. So, but this is the photograph that ends up on the front page of the New York Times every other day. This is the negative poverty level situation that a lot of people find themselves in Africa. And so we try to include that also.
Terrific, terrific. I'm glad we were able to fit it in. Lou, in the minute we have left, just very briefly, can you encapsulate what legacy do you hope the Pan Africa project will leave for future generations?
Well, I'm hoping that I'm trying to use photography, which I consider the universal language. We don't need a translator. We don't need a Rosetta Stone.
Mm.
Anybody in the world can look at a photograph and see what what people look like or are doing halfway around the world without the sort of interpretation that might come from writing or not being able to understand the writing. But the legacy is that I want to make a contemporary and a much more honest, real Africa portrait for people to be able to use and for the continent to be able to manifest itself as it progresses.
Well, you've definitely accomplished it up to now, and I know with your energy, fortitude, and vision, you're going to be visiting many, many more countries in the years to come. Eager to follow your work. Want to recommend again, viewers and others, go to your website, which we'll have in the credits, explore it, keep in touch, find out more. And in closing, Lou, I know we could go on and on. I just want to wish you continued success with future endeavors.
Thank you, thank you, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the ability to show everybody.
Wonderful. Also want to thank those of you watching for joining us and hope you'll be able to tune in next time.